everyone, my name is Kassima, but friends, teachers, and strangers have always had trouble pronouncing my name, so I just go by Kassie. I was born on the 19th, on the coldest day of December, as my dad likes to say, in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. I'm a middle child, and thankfully I never felt like the unloved middle child. My parents loved my older brother, my younger sister, and I equally. I was a strange kid, to say the least. I liked being alone, I liked being bad, and I was always in my own strange little world, but you never realize how strange you are until other people make you aware of it. When I was very young, I spent a lot of time in Singapore and Malaysia, and one time, on the way to Singapore, I climbed the wrong side of an escalator all the way to the top, and I jumped before security could catch me. Amazingly, aside from a sore bum, I was perfectly fine. The trips to Singapore were by far the happiest times of my life. Everyone embraced my weirdness, and the way of life there is so much different than it is here. I stayed on a little farm in Malaysia for quite some time, and the food was so simple, the way of life was so simple, and I stayed up all night just watching the fireflies and not being aware of time or anything. When I got back to Lethbridge from Singapore, things changed. School began, the Southside McDonald's now had a play place, and the pace of life got a lot faster. Every single weeknight, my dad would challenge me with philosophical puzzles. He got me to a math and reading comprehension level far beyond my years. He made sure I had a knack for learning. He even got me Scrabble instead of Twister for Christmas once. Heartbreaking, but I thank him for it now. In the first grade, I spent most of my time walking around the playground with a deck of Pokemon cards or a bag of instant noodles, and I spent an unreasonable amount of time daydreaming. One day on the school bus, a boy poked his head out from the seat in front of me, stretched his eyes across his face, and said, "You're Chinese." I was new to racist tomfoolery, so I was silent and very confused. He got all of his friends to make the same face. It's amazing the things you vividly remember forever. I'm a quarter Chinese, but my physical attributes don't make it very evident. I was one of the few exotic kids around, so students always mixed up my ethnicity interchangeably. As a first grader, I never really considered the possibility of me being or looking different than everyone else, and it was a really hard thing for me to think about. Not too long after, my sister came home crying. She wasn't a crier, so I was super alarmed about it. I asked her what happened, and she said that she wasn't allowed in her friend's hot tub because her friend's mother thought my sister's skin was made of dirt. I wish I was kidding. We were shaken and resolved to spend more time together. From paper dolls to church youth group to video games, some of the best times I had were with my sister. We loved writing and filming plays and doing anything creative. My sister knew how to crack me up. One time while playing GoldenEye, she actually made me laugh so hard I peed my pants. Fast forward to late elementary school, after the 9/11 attacks, a boy made a habit of cutting out pictures of Middle Eastern-looking men and putting them on my desk. As I said, I got mixed up with a lot of different ethnicities, and the whole experience was confusing and horrifying. He humiliated me one day in front of what seemed like everyone by holding up one of the pictures and saying, "Your husband is waiting." The boys all laughed hysterically, and I just stood there, dumbfounded. The racist generalizing and stigma made me grow to really hate the way I looked. I was always covering my face with my coat sleeve, my self-esteem went down, and my fear of people went up. I started combating bullying with bullying, and my aggression got me out of a lot of potentially humiliating situations. So being very angry, jealous, and bitter was a tool I kept all the way until the end of high school. My aggression was based on fear. The people who bully you are doing so because they have deep-seated issues. Something deep and dark is blocking their empathy. So please don't take it seriously, or at least try not to. It's not you, it's them. My sister was also recklessly teased, but we stuck together. She and her amazing group of friends were so hilarious and uplifting. Middle school was difficult. I had one true friend, Ashley, who was still my best friend. We'd hide together in boot rooms and bathroom stalls during lunch period every single day. I remember a school dance when no one asked us to dance, so we just hung out in the back of the gym all night and made each other laugh. Near the end of middle school, Ashley switched schools due to bullying, and my family encountered problems that caused even more anxiety for me. People had all sorts of theories about my life that were very painful for me to listen to. I didn't open up to anyone because I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. People with too much time on their hands will always have theories and unsubstantiated opinions. Don't listen to them. There are so many beautiful things in this world to fill your head with. People tend to believe negative stories as soon as they hear them. Just remember that anyone can say anything. Be equally critical of all statements. Predictably, high school was a nightmare. I skipped more classes than I showed up to in my final 2 years, and I didn't take care of myself. I was troubled inside, and my sister had similar feelings, but she had a lot of friends and was always putting on a happy front. I later learned that we both have something called clinical depression. It's not seasonal or circumstantial, it's kind of always there, and environmental factors can intensify it. You can't completely cure it, it's something I've had to manage and be aware of. After taking a semester off, I went to college with my brother. It was the only school that would let me in with my high school grades, and we took the same classes, talked about books all day, and wore the same shoes like the weirdos we are. We both got straight A's, scholarships, and invites to a university. Within a few months of my first semester at university, my unhealthy, sedentary lifestyle resulted in health issues that made me constantly ill, fatigued, and insecure. I attempted to combat my depression with SSRIs, or antidepressants, which, in my case, made me irritable, spontaneous, and suicidal. I had severe emotional difficulty and withdrew from university under extenuating circumstances. I attempted a myriad of quick fixes and diets only to worsen my problems. I was emotionally turbulent, my acne was bad, I was constantly exhausted, I had chronic migraines, and I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now. The conventional fixes failed me miserably, and more importantly, I couldn't let my depression grow any more intense. I had nothing to lose, so I took a personal risk. I abandoned my emotional and dietary habits and threw my various medications in the garbage. I developed a healthy skepticism and started doing my own research. It was a long and hard process, and I ended up defying most of the health and nutritional dogma I was fed all of my life, and undoing years of self-imposed emotional damage. My lifestyle change had such an incredible impact on my life. It also astounded my parents, who were worried sick about me. I remember seeing my dad tear up upon witnessing me be confident in my work clothes. Something so trivial reflected a world of change in my perspective. You can't help someone who doesn't want help, and despite the efforts of my loving friends and family, I didn't get better until I made it a personal priority. A year later, my sister got hit by an aggressive, unapologetic drunk driver. She was left with severe emotional damage and permanent tissue damage in her neck and back. Despite her personal pain, she was always smiling and being a complete goof like usual. She was also taking antidepressants. I repeatedly warned her to be careful with the medication because for me, they were poison. She trusted in her healthcare practitioner and moved forward. A few months after I returned to university, my sister overdosed on antidepressants. The medication caused her to have seizures, but she was saved. When she woke up, I told her it was the worst day of my life. She smiled at the sight of us and started acting like her old self. She was kept in a psychiatric ward for 2 weeks, and when she was finally released, she came home and built her life again. She got a job, a car, made great new friends, and was constantly smiling. I left school a second time to be with her, and she was constantly surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally. You'd never know by looking at her that she was depressed. She was beautiful, and she knew how to project an image of confidence. She did what she wanted, and I couldn't even tell her what to do. I was always worried about her. Since I was spending so much time at home, I started YouTubing. My depression was completely under control, I had a new perspective and felt amazing, which made me so excited to share. I had been on YouTube before, but it was a fun and shallow channel, which is perfectly fine, but I lost interest. I pestered my sister endlessly about what I had learned, but aside from a few things that she liked and shared, she was often busy with life and disinterested. I remembered that no one was capable of helping me until I made it a priority to help myself. After much pleading, I figured that I didn't want to be one of those people who pushes their beliefs on others who didn't ask, so I resolved to spread influence and not force. I met an amazing guy named Terry, a friend of my older brother. My sister and I loved his knack for comedy. He was always making us laugh. Terry witnessed the impact that my lifestyle and educational pursuits had on me mentally and physically, and he supported what I did along with proving it to himself, which meant a great deal to me. Something you guys need to understand about clinical depression is that things like possessions, looks, success, and even love can stand in your way of happiness. It's a feeling that's inaccessible to many, and it's fruitless to pretend you know how it feels if you haven't felt it. It's incredibly hard to describe, which creates an even more intense feeling of isolation. This past summer, at 2 a.m., I got a phone call from my brother. His voice sounded cold and shaken. He told me to wake up my dad. We all woke up and went to the living room, and that's where my brother told us that my sister had taken her own life. Upon hearing the news, I didn't know if I'd ever be happy again. We were inseparable for most of our lives, and nobody understood me like she did. It has caused me great emotional and existential stress. I miss her so much. Some days after hearing the news, I reflected on what I taught myself and figured I had to spread some love and positivity, otherwise the gravity of the situation would be too much. So I wrote and filmed a video called Happiness Takes Effort. If it weren't for all the resilience I taught myself, I wouldn't have made it through this hard time. I used to be so fragile and guarded, but I've learned that if you don't live life honestly, things fall apart slowly. Despite my sister's demons, so many people reached out and told me that she saved them from hurting themselves. One of my closest friends owes his life to my sister. She helped so many people out of their dark vices, but she never prioritized herself. She took time with others and threw quick fixes at herself. When I see her smile in photos now, I'm reminded of the fronts that she put on to stop people from worrying about her. She once told me that good people do not take popular belief in mob mentality as truth. I live by that phrase. It inspires my research and critical thinking. Good people have the responsibility to be themselves despite the consequences. I got hundreds of emails, messages, and phone calls from friends, family, peers, and attention seekers who pretended they were good friends with my sister. I saw a different face of humanity that day. The virtual world of the internet bombarded me all at once, demanding answers and acknowledgement. They unknowingly put me under an immense amount of stress. My heart is heavy, but love and positivity push me forward. In my darkest moment, my true friends came together and made me laugh, cry, and feel truly grateful. Once I felt the deepest sorrow, seeing beauty in the mundane revealed my immense capacity for joy. I'm not perfect, but I fight fear every day with positivity. I know who I am because it wasn't easy to get here. My sister wasn't perfect either, but she loved deeply and she was brilliant. She could make anyone smile on the worst day of their life. She could make me laugh if I was heartbroken. We both loved art created by people with pained hearts because for us, it was proof that we weren't alone. She had so much to offer and she used all of her energy to help her friends, but she left her own well-being in the dark. She hated to see us worry, so she put on a front, and I'm guilty of doing the same thing. But if you want to do continuous good, you have to prioritize your own well-being first. Being completely selfless is not sustainable, and no one can help you until you're willing to help yourself. Honesty hurts, but it can save your life. So don't be afraid, and if people have negative things to say about your outlook, be grateful that your empathy, compassion, and access to critical thinking is not so limited that you would act like a child and shamelessly hurt others. In light of the madness, it can be hard to see the positive, but I believe you can find light in some of the darkest situations. I know life is not easy or fair. I'm not entitled to anything, and I have to fight for my happiness. If you're hurting right now, please fight it and don't give up on yourself. If I were there with you, I'd lend an ear, make you food, and try to make you laugh. But for now, build your strength so you can endure anything, distinguish yourself, and embrace your weirdness.